Hello, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the Library Loves tag. I was tagged by Booking with Debra, whose channel I will link down below. The original was created by Jess, but the original tag video is no longer available. So this is a series of questions all about your local library. And as you may know, if you've been here for any length of time at all, I love my library. So question 1 is, when did you first go to the library or get a library card? When I was a child. I don't remember exactly, but I remember every weekend pretty much going to the library, not just one library, but 2 libraries, because where my mum and dad live, there's actually 2 libraries in the town where they live, which is, I think, quite unusual nowadays with libraries closing. But they do still have 2 libraries where they live, and we used to visit regularly both of them on a Saturday afternoon, and I get books out. Question 2 is, how often do you use your library? So I use my library all the time. I usually go once a week on a Saturday morning to pick up the books that I have reserved and take back the books that I have read. My library books, they always sit, my unread library books sit here at the front of this top shelf. As you can see at the moment, I only have 3 books unread from the library and the one that I'm reading at the moment, which I will show you in a moment. I am trying to slow down my library ordering at the moment because I never get to the books that I actually own. So there was a couple of weeks ago where I actually didn't go to the library that weekend, which felt very, very strange. But usually I go once a week. Question 3 is, have you ever had a late or lost library book? Not that I can remember. Not as an adult. Whether I did as a child, I guess it's a possibility, but I don't remember that, and I have always taken quite good care of my library books. So, not that I can remember. Question 4 is, what's your favourite thing about your library? So many things, but my favourite thing about my library is my reading group. So I've been a member of this reading group for about 8 years now. The group itself has been going for at least 15 years, and there are still some original members. There is 7 of us in total at the moment. Over time, there's new people come and drop out and so on. But we meet once a month. We meet on a Saturday morning once a month, and we read a different book each month, which we select from the library catalogue of reading group sets. And we meet and we talk about the book. The first rule of book club is that it's okay not to read the book. Generally speaking, we'll all give it a go. But if you don't like it, that's fine, and we can talk about that. And to be honest, there's times when sometimes people don't even have the chance to start the book just because life gets in the way sometimes. There might be health issues or family issues, but it's okay. If you haven't even given the book a go, you can still come along and you can still take part in the conversations, because not only do we talk about the book, but we'll talk about lots of other things as well. And it's just so much fun, and I love it. And that is my favourite thing about my library. Question 5 is, are you a browser or do you plan what you are taking out? I plan what I'm taking out because I reserve books online, and they are there waiting for me on the shelf for me to pick up when I go in. The reason I do that, I've done that like for as long as I can remember. It became more of a thing during the pandemic. That was the only way you could get books out for a while. You weren't allowed to browse, but that's always been my way of doing things anyway, because I will hear about books either on BookTube or other social media or in publishers' newsletters or things like that, and I will just reserve them online from the library. So that can include books which haven't yet come out, but the library's got a copy on order, so I'll try and get first in the queue if I can. And I also order books from other local libraries, and they will deliver the book to my local library free of charge, which I think is quite unusual for that service to still be free of charge. I know the other 2 sort of local authorities nearby, you do have to pay for that service. So I imagine that's going to come in at some point, but for the time being, it's still free to order books from any of the local libraries. I do enjoy browsing, and I did do it a few weeks ago, unusually. Mainly because I haven't been ordering that many books because I'm trying to read the books that I own, but that meant that I sort of allowed myself a morning browsing at the library, and I did pick up a few books there. I do enjoy doing that as well, but I don't do it as often. Question 6 is, name a book you took a chance on at the library. So this is a book I picked up, as I say, when I was browsing the other week. This is The Blue Bedspread by Raj Kamal Jha. I have recently read this, and I talk about it in my May wrap-up. which I'll link down below. But this is a book I'd never heard of before, never heard of the author before. I just thought it sounded interesting. And yeah, I did enjoy it. It's a very strange book. I won't go into too much detail about what it's about, not least because it's a really difficult book to talk about. But no, I took a chance on it and I very much enjoyed it. I'm quite happy taking chances on books that I pick up from the library because it's risk-free. Because it doesn't, if I don't like it, it's fine. I'll DNF it. I'll take it back. I haven't lost any money by doing that. And I think the library really allows you to take a chance on books, because if you're not purchasing it yourself, you don't feel as obliged to finish the book if you're not enjoying it, I don't think. Question 7 is, what is the best book that you've read from the library? So, I mean, that's a difficult question because a good, 80% of my reading is library books. So for me to tell you the best book I've read from the library, it would just mean telling you my favourite books. But there is one book in particular that I read from the library last year that I want to mention. And it was an anthology of short stories by various writers. And the way that this book came about was that there was a creative writing course ran by the library service where I live and one of the neighbouring library services. So they ran this creative writing course for local residents, and then at the culmination of the course the participants were invited to submit a short story, and those short stories were compiled into this anthology. And then the anthology itself was then placed into the library catalogues of those local libraries. So it's a book that doesn't exist elsewhere outside of the library. It's not a book that you can buy, it's not a published book, but I was able to get it out of the library catalogue and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The stories were of a really, really high standard, and I just love the whole idea of sort of where that book came from, purely because of the library. Question 8. Question 8. Have you ever taken the same book out multiple times? So yes, and actually there's 2 books I've got out at the moment which I have taken out before. These were both books I picked up when browsing, which I have read before. So first is The Behaviour of Moths by Poppy Adams. This is a book I read several years ago, and I'm pretty sure I just saw it when browsing the library and got it out, and I really loved it. When I was browsing it again the other week, I was like, I'm going to read that book again because it's great, and again, thoroughly enjoyed it. I talk about this in my May wrap-up, which I will link down below. And then the other book I've got out at the moment, which I have had out before, is The Night Watch by Sarah Waters. I read this several years ago, and I am rereading all of Sarah Waters' books at the moment, over the next sort of year or so. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I am only about 150 pages through, but very much enjoying it. As a child, I did used to get out the same books like several times from the library. So for example, Agatha Christie, I read certainly all of the Poirots and Marples and the sort of like the main sort of murder mystery ones as a teenager, and I read them over and over again, and they were all from the library. There were other books I remember reading over and over again, like Millie Molly Mandy. I remember there was like a green omnibus edition of like 3 books put together, and I remember I got that out of the library multiple times. So yeah, I've definitely done that lots. Question 9. Have you read a good book that takes place in a library? So the most recent book that I think I've read that is set partly in a library is the Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Zecchi, which is on the Women's Prize shortlist this year. Our main character, Benny, a young boy, seeks refuge in the library and meets some interesting characters there, and the library plays an important part in that novel. Question 10 is, have you used your library's ebooks or audio options? So I have, but my preference is for physical books. So audio wise, I've never listened to a novel on audiobook. I've listened to I don't know if it was a short story or a novella by Benjamin Evaristo called Hello Mum, which is only like, I think it was maybe an hour long, which I really enjoyed. And then I have listened to some non-fiction. So for example, My Name is Why by Lem Sisse. I listened to that on audio a while ago and really enjoyed it. I struggled to take information in on audio, which is why I've never managed to read a novel on audio. And in terms of ebooks, I have read a couple from the library, but again, it's not my preference. So for example, I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid last year, because the library didn't have a physical copy. I really wanted to read it. It's quite a short book, so I read it in like a few hours one afternoon. But again, reading in e-format is just not my preference. It kind of just feels like I'm at work, and my natural instinct when I'm reading stuff electronically is to sort of skim read it. So yeah, I prefer physical books, but I mean, I think obviously having access to ebooks and audiobooks is great for library patrons, because it just means that more people are able to access books. It means that people can read in different formats, and sort of that fits into their lives in different ways. So obviously I think that's really great. Question 11 is, what's the best library you've been to? I've not really visited that many libraries, I don't think. My favourite library is my local library, and I do think it's a great library. I really do. The staff are so friendly. They do loads of stuff, you know, for the community in terms of free courses and activities for children and things like that. And the actual service in terms of the stock of books that they have, the system that they have where you can order for free from the different libraries. I think it's an absolute brilliant service, so it is my favourite library. And question 12, final question, is what would make you use your library more? As I say, I use my library a lot. I do generally go once a week. They have, in the years since I've lived in this area for 10 years now, and in that time they have restricted their opening hours. So originally they opened in the evening, I think 2 evenings a week, because of the reading group that I go to. We used to meet on a Monday evening, although I prefer actually meeting on a Saturday now. So yeah, so maybe if they had longer opening hours, that maybe would encourage me to go more. But I mean, once a week is plenty enough, really, isn't it, to go to the library? I mean, they could maybe have free cake. That would encourage me to go even more, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'm there all the time. It feels strange on a weekend if I haven't been to the library. So those are all the questions. I'm going to tag a couple of people. I'm going to tag Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. I'm going to tag Mel from Roaming Through Books, both fellow library lovers. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.